From a highly secure network of top secret locations across South Texas, this is the Spurs Insider. Feels like midwinter edition. I am your host, Mike Finger, joined as always by our panel of Express News, Spurs beat writers, Jeff McDonald and Tom Orsborn, with Express News sports editor Nick Talbot. We dubbed this the Feels Like Midwinter edition because of this. The last time your local Cagers, heading into this podcast, entered a regular season NBA basketball game with a 5 in the win column was the second week of January. They were 5-30 when the local Cagers, when the Spurs face the Washington Wizards this Wednesday night. They will once again have a 5 in the win column. This time they are 5-6. Jeff McDonald, I'll start with you. Are you bundled up? Do you have your coat on?
I did last night in the media room at the aptly named Frost Bank Center, because man, that place is freezing.
It is. The Spurs are not freezing; they're hot. They're 5-6.
You're trying to
explain this.
You're trying to change the subject away from air conditioning.
Yeah, because when people tune in to the Spurs Insider to hear about basketball,
how do we explain
how the Spurs are so hot?
They're a better team than they were last year at this time. I mean, I think that's pretty evident, and the schedule helps them a little bit. We kind of talked about that too. The schedule was going to get a little bit more favorable for them in November after kind of a brutal start, and they're kind of taking advantage of that. Although they did blow one to the one-win Utah Jazz team, kind of made that up by beating Sacramento last night. So maybe they're not winning. I think we all predicted 2-2 for this little stretch of 4 games. I don't think we predicted the exact games, wins and losses in order, but we got the 2-2. So
maybe we should have, because the one last night against the Sacramento Kings was sort of set up in the same way the Minnesota victory was, in that the team coming in was on the second night of a back-to-back after a late evening. Tom Orsborn, your streak continues, as does the streak of the entire podcast, of picking every week's record correctly so far this year. We kind of joked at the open that this is a hot team. This is a team that is way ahead of last year, but according to our predictions, they're supposed to be 5-6 now. That's what they are. Tom, are you surprised in any way by what we saw since the last podcast?
No, not really. I am surprised that we're kind of taken for granted already. Victor, what a line. 34 points last night, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 blocks. I mean, the guy he's just stunning to me what he's capable of. And now he's hitting his 3-pointers. At an efficient rate the last 2 games.
You tell me if I'm out of line when it comes to watching Victor Wembanyama play basketball lately. Like, am I even last night? I feel like I spent a lot of time sitting up there on the platform above the Frost Bank Center going, what is he doing? Why did he take that shot? What is going on? Well, that's not one I would take. And then at the end of the game, he's got 34 points, 14 rebounds, 3 blocks. Last night, he had made more than half his shots, more than half his 3-pointers. And so sometimes it's like, what are you complaining about? What are you complaining about? Like you're kind of nitpicking. So I guess I would like to formally apologize to Victor Wembanyama for occasionally second guessing his shot selection.
Well, we've talked for a long time on this podcast about how the historical success of the San Antonio Spurs sort of made people spoiled, made people who followed them spoiled as to what they expect. Like, Victor's almost doing that in a miniature form, just about him, and that he's been so great as an NBA player, even during a rough season, that you're sort of spoiled, that you're going to see something that you've never seen before, that you're going to see just transcendent basketball every night you watch him. I do wonder if I can. I'm going to go against type here. I'm gonna violate the expectations of the listeners. I'm gonna be the black cloud a little bit here.
Cheery Mike Finger's going to be like down and pessimistic. That doesn't sound like you at all.
and that's not pessimism. It's just I'm going to throw a caveat on this. It's like, do we want if do we want Victor Wembanyama to be a guy who expects to make 6 3-pointers every night to be like a integral central part of his game? I still am not in love with that, and part of that is the game itself, right? It's the NBA. That's what teams do now. That's what players do now. You have to make a bunch of 3-pointers to win. The dude is 7 foot 3.5, and I just in a perfect world, I'd like to see a little more of the inside game. I think that comes up in a game like the loss to the then 1-7 Utah Jazz on Saturday, when in the closing minutes of that game, you didn't have and I'm going to sound like an old man yelling at a cloud here. You didn't have the situation where a team needs a bucket, the Spurs need a bucket. You can't throw it down to, Tim Duncan like in the old days and say, this is where we're going to get our bucket. You can't go to Kawhi Leonard to get your mid-range jumper that's really, really reliable. They sort of didn't have that option, and maybe that'll come. I think it will come. That could have been a fluke ending there. They finished really well so far this year, but I would just like, while we're celebrating how undeniably great Victor Wembanyama has been, and you want to continue to see him shoot 3-pointers, and it's great that he's making more of them. I still think that's the missing part, is just the go-to, not necessarily even a post move, but a higher percentage shot that he can turn to when he needs it, when the Spurs need it. Sorry to be negative there.
I would like to further limit the 28 footers with 14 seconds on the shot clock where the ball has not been passed once.
Yeah.
Like he'll hit those every now and then. So it's hard to completely just say never do it. But yeah. I think there's some times he falls in love with that. Those would be that would be my only quibble. Like I don't mind if he plays like Kevin Durant, but I don't really want him to play like Trae Young.
Yeah, it doesn't really need to play like Caitlin Clark out there, right? The two leaders in the NBA scoring combined for less than 1 3-pointer a game. So it's not like you have to do that and be the leading scorer in the NBA these days. But it is part of Victor's game. But 7.5 threes a game, it does seem like a lot.
That's overkill in my opinion.
But maybe he just has to grow into it more. And this is, if he's still going to be great doing this. So it's not like he still might make the All NBA team doing this. So it's hard to be nitpicky. Unless you're Mike Finger, of course, and then
you're Dark Cloud. If he doesn't develop a back to the basket game, could he beat Kevin Durant though? Or does Kevin have a better back to the basket game than we sort of give him credit for?
I think Durant, right? Obviously, he's I
don't mean
many time MVP. He's
Durant.
A multiple MVP. He's a Finals MVP. He's one of the best players in NBA history. I think that it's safe to say Kevin Durant has a better post game right now than Victor Wembanyama does. I think.
Yes, but did he at age 20?
You would hope. Well, no, he didn't. And you would hope that by the end of this, and again, Kevin Durant is an all-timer, just spectacular player. And this is ridiculous thing to say about a 20-year-old player, but that's what we do with Victor Wembanyama. Like, I'd be a bit disappointed if Victor Wembanyama didn't end up with a better post game than Kevin Durant ended up with.
Fair. Yeah.
Fair.
When they drafted him, I thought something like being Porzingis on offense and Gobert on defense was kind of the floor for Victor. But I think everyone wanted him to be Kevin Durant on offense and then Gobert, and that combination is otherworldly, which is namely.
Well, when you say everyone wanted, the key person there is Victor Wembanyama he wants to be Kevin Durant. That's the issue here, and like, who are we, a bunch of schlubs, to tell Victor Wembanyama who he should want to be and who he shouldn't want to be? Like, that's great. If he wants to be Victor Wembanyama, that's great. I think for him to live up to our just unrealistic sky high expectations, you want a little more of a go-to move. And I think that'll come. It might not come in year 2. It might not come in year 3. It'll come eventually. We just get greedy. We just get, like I said, a little unrealistic about things.
He can also still without that go-to move. I mean, I see I get what you're saying. Like in a tight spot, he needs something to go to. That's why it's called a go-to.
Very
move.
good.
But he's still able to get a lot of stuff done around the basket just by being super tall.
He is.
I saw the one last night where he just grabs an offensive rebound and just, puts it back immediately. And some of it is just him deciding to do that. I think earlier in the season, he sometimes was forgetting that he's 7'3". If you get the ball around the basket, just go up with it immediately. Don't pull it down. Don't look to pass out of it. It's hard to just dump him the ball in the post right now because he's gonna get swarmed. He's going to have someone, we've talked about it before. It's someone that's shorter than him, so it looks like he should score on them. But that person guarding him is like a Dylan Brooks type who's just going to shove him around. Victor has such a high center of gravity. Those little guys can kind of move him a little bit. So if you want him to have a go-to post move, he's going to have to get stronger.
Yep.
And if he gets stronger,
the other thing about
affect other things. I don't know.
The play that you're talking about, the offensive rebound, which when that happens, it just looks so easy. And troglodytes like us are thinking, why doesn't that happen all the time? Part of it is like you have to be down there to get the offensive rebound. And
correct.
And when he's out there roaming the perimeter, which he should do. Again, we are absolutely nitpicking here. When he's roaming the perimeter and the ball gets swung, well, then he's not in position to get those offensive rebounds. And so you just like to see him spend a little more time closer to the basket to allow those really easy type of putbacks.
Here's the thing. That's harder and takes more energy.
That's true.
And tires you out more.
That's true.
So that's why you find him floating on the perimeter a lot. That's one of the reasons he's taking those 28-footers is because that's an open shot that's easy to get off. Maybe it's not easy to make, but he doesn't have to work too hard to get off an open 28-footer. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying I guarantee you that's the reason he kind of falls in love with that. Maybe this is just maybe it's a function of it's still early in the season. He's got to ramp up his conditioning to be able to take that pounding for, 30.
He's ahead of another part of taking him for granted. He's ahead of his pace last year at this time. Like he peaked late last year. I think he'll peak late again. Doing just historic stuff. Like not many people in NBA history and Spurs history for sure have made 6 3-pointers in back-to-back games. It's sort of staggering. I think I saw Chuck Person on that list.
Chuck Person, Manu Ginobili, and Danny Green are the 3 that joined Victor Wembanyama.
The rifleman, Chuck Person. So it's historic. It's incredible. Still so much room to improve. To look back at the week, what else did we miss besides Victor Wembanyama? I will volunteer that I'm really liking the first round pick that the Spurs made after the Victor Wembanyama draft. Not gonna win Rookie of the Year.
Rob Dillingham. He's barely playing in Minnesota. What are you talking about?
Yeah. That was the second first round pick that the Spurs made after Victor Wembanyama.
My bad.
Stefon Castle, I think he's going to work out. I think they might not have screwed that up. He's not lighting up the stat sheet every night, but he's going to be a player. He does a lot of stuff well, has a good head about him, contributes to winning plays, which you would expect from a guy who was a key member of a national championship team at UConn. Again, breaking news, not exactly the shocking type of headline that generate viral podcasts. But Stefon Castle, I think, is pretty good.
They have so much faith in him already. It's incredible. It really is.
He reminds me a little, and I don't want to maybe put this on that poor young man's shoulders, but it does remind me a little bit of when Kawhi was a rookie. And you could tell this guy's pretty good, but at that time as a rookie, he's just doing kind of glue guy things, like grabbing rebounds, for Steph, it's making the right pass, occasionally finishing around the rim, defending. Like that was Kawhi as a rookie. You didn't really see he wasn't an all-star yet. He was kind of a glue guy, but you could see those little skills that he had coming along. And Kawhi worked on his offensive game so much. And if Steph Castle, and by all accounts, he does have this dedication, but will have that same kind of dedication that Kawhi does, he could be a really, really special player.
This should be in your newspaper. The San Antonio Express News, expressnews.com, maybe in the Spurs Nation newsletter. at some point this week, but hung out late last night in the home locker room with the rookie and found that I was asking him about the slow step, which I know Jeff's also been asking about, and this move that he makes that we had Kyle Anderson, nicknamed Slow Mo. We covered him for a long time here in San Antonio. Stefon Castle is almost taking it to a new extreme in that when he finishes his Euro slow step at under the basket, sometimes he comes to a complete stop on that last step that you get before the travel, and it's real like he will go from full speed to full stop. It's breathtaking, and it throws defenders off balance. And one thing I found interesting that leads to what Jeff was talking about with the moves that Kawhi would come up with his offseason work every summer. Stefan told me that he had never had anything resembling a slow step before he got to San Antonio. Like that was added to his game. What I'm blanking on the new uh, assistant, Jeff. Is it Mike Noyes?
That's correct.
Mike Noyes. He said Mike Noyes is the one who taught him that in the gym this summer, and he's worked on it. He's developed it so fast that like it's an absolute weapon. And Stefan was saying sometimes it looks to people like a travel, which it does, because he is freezing his body on that last step before getting that layup off, and the defender will blow by and he'll get layups out of it. It's really cool move. Not the only reason he's playing well, but I think it speaks to his ability to add things and to put in the work. And he's not option number one on this team. He might not be option number three, but as Tom said, they trust in him. They are giving him all kinds of responsibilities early on, and I think he's just going to be great.
The way he changes speeds with the ball is something to behold. He's not like a speed demon, like he's not Blake Wesley,
right,
or Tony Parker, but the way he changes speeds makes him really hard to get a gauge on and defend. It's like how Greg Maddux used to pitch. You know, he's not going to blow you away with a 100-mile-an-hour heater, but he's going to change speed so much that it keeps the defenders totally off balance, and he gets looks at the rim that way. It's really fun.
And that's former Connecticut bench warmer Mike Noyes helping former Connecticut star Stefon Castle.
Good information, Tom.
Huskies stick together, I guess.
Yep.
Hey, we haven't talked about Devin Vassell coming back. We're just going to bury the lead there.
I'm not sure that was the lead, but yeah, it's big news. He's coming off the bench, working him back in slowly to his usual minutes. He's not going to get there yet, but Tom, you were on hand for his first game back against the Utah Jazz. How close to peak Devin Vassell are we getting to here?
Well, I mean, the consensus was very little rust after that long layoff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, missing last 8 games last year, surgery in June, missing the first 9 this year, but he came back with little to no rust. And, you know, Mitch Johnson, acting head coach, said before last night's game that he will come off the bench for the foreseeable future. And Devin told me he's all on board with that plan. I'm not tripping. He says, I'm not tripping about starting or coming off the bench. So they're going to ease him back slowly. But yeah, the good thing is the foot feels great and little to no rust.
What does that add, Jeff?
Well, it adds more scoring punch, more spacing. You know, we've talked a lot about this team doesn't have an overabundance of guys that really scare you from 3-point range, but Devin's one that kind of will. When he's hot, he's a guy that can get you a tough basket when you need it. So all that, and he will be in the starting lineup eventually. Kind of the next kind of debate we'll probably have on here is who does he replace? We just talked about how great Steph Castle has been in that starting lineup, but he might be the one that goes back to the bench once Vassell, is full go.
Yeah, I think by the new year,
he had those back-to-back threes in the third quarter last night, one that turned into a 4-point play. And that's kind of what he brings, you know,
yeah,
getting those baskets when needed.
on the lineup, I think by the new year, there's going to be two changes like that. As Jeff and Tom pointed out, Mitch said Devin's coming off the bench for the foreseeable future, but that has a lot to do with just ramping up his minutes. Did not have a preseason, did not play in those first 9 games, and you want to, in a close game, have Devin Vassell out there on the floor at the end, and then if you want to have him on the floor at the end and he doesn't have his minutes up yet, you probably can't start him. So that's the deal there. But by the new year, you're going to probably add Devin Vassell back to the starting lineup. You're probably going to add Jeremy Sohan back when he did we talk about Sohan's injury when we did our last podcast? I don't think we did. I was really disappointed for him.
You're right. He's
been playing so dang well.
Had we talked about it? I can't remember.
No, we didn't, because I'll tell you this. Yeah, I don't want to rehash stuff, and I don't want to bring the thing down. We recorded our podcast when you and I were in a secure location on the West Coast, and it was on a day that I made a really bad prediction on this podcast at the end that we will not address this week. But after recording that podcast on the West Coast, I boarded my flight home with Jeremy Sohan on the same flight, and when I saw him heading to San Antonio as opposed to Houston on the team plane, I'm a pretty sharp cookie. Is it or cookie sharp? I did the math and realized that the news on his injury on his left thumb probably wasn't good. Spoke with him briefly. He had a really positive attitude about things, but man, he had been really, really great for them through those first 8 games or whatever it was. Had come along a long way. No one out there in Spurs fan land cares, but he'd been great with the media, been a really fun guy to talk to. I told him on the plane, looking forward to doing this again. Can't wait to have you back. He was with his gap tooth grin, upbeat about it. He's going to be out for probably at least a month with it's hard to play with a broken thumb. But is it? Go ahead.
Let me remember. Is it the left thumb?
It is.
Yes.
So I'm not really being flippant here, but does he really need the left thumb? He shoots one-handed. He's mostly a defensive guy anyway.
Yeah.
Like maybe he gets back quicker because he doesn't need the left.
Breaking your left thumb as a right-handed player is better than breaking your right thumb.
Correct.
That is true.
It reminded me of Boris Diaw injured his left hand, I think he just sprained a finger, and his thing was I don't need my left hand anyway, which is true. Boris famously never shot a ball his entire career with his left hand.
Yeah,
not once.
Was it I think it was a Sean Elliott line way back in the day about if someone severed David Robinson's right hand, he wouldn't notice it for a week. Because David never used his. He was left-handed. He never used his offhand. Yeah, you're right. That is the silver lining, the bright side there. It was his left thumb instead of his right thumb.
Just wrap that thing up. Let him go out there, and piss off Dylan Brooks. That's all you need.
But that is what led to Stefon Castle making the starting lineup. Devin Vassell's absence to start the season is what led to Julian Champagny in the starting lineup. And if both those guys get their job back, then those 2 guys we mentioned might move to the bench. But who knows? There's all kinds of ways. And there could be new injuries pop up, new adjustments for Mitch Johnson to make. We probably should mention that not a lot has changed since our last podcast regarding Greg Popovich. Still no clarity as to if or when he will return this season. Tom even tried to get specific with Mitch Johnson as to do you know for sure he's going to be back this season? And Mitch sort of shut that down. This isn't to say that they don't expect him back this season, but that's not guaranteed either. They're going to keep forging on. Everyone says that Greg Popovich is okay, wishing him well, but I think it's fair to say that this is going to be the status quo moving forward. And I wanted to get your guys' take before we shut down for the week, just on how you think how you think Mitch is doing. I think he's, there was a blown lead to the Clippers. There was a tough home loss to Utah, but I think that he's held up pretty well so far.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they've missed a beat, which, they were also blowing leads when Pop was coaching.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's kind of hard for me to like really judge like what difference a coach makes anyway.
Yeah.
Which I think is stupid, is silly to say. A lot of what happens behind the scenes, it's the like the people person part of it, knowing how to talk to guys, knowing how to get the best out of guys. That's not something you're really going to be able to evaluate like a Mitch Johnson on over a week and a half or 2 weeks. The product on the floor looks okay, looks sharp. I mean, there's like someone last night on that bad website. I mean, do they look like when the turnovers were going crazy in the first half? Do they just look undisciplined? We're undisciplined with Pop out. I'm like, no, they were turning the ball over like crazy when Pop was here. So I don't know much. I will say there have been a lot of nice ATO plays for Mitch Johnson, like call a timeout and get a layup. Like that's fun to see.
Maybe the smartest thing he's doing is listening to Chris Paul.
Yeah. Chris Paul had 2 review challenges last night.
He showed a lot of humility, saying, "Hey, he's been at it a lot longer than I have."
It's true. Chris Paul is older than his acting head coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris Paul. You can't go wrong.
We're talking about the taking coaching and encouraging people. That made me think of friend of the podcast, friend of the Express News, Sandro Mamukelashvili, who had a really good week. He's fun to talk to after games because he's very open about the mental part of the game and how I got to get out of my head, and I'm out there to shoot. I got to shoot, and he's doing it. A really key moment in the game Monday night against who did I just watch them play? The Kings. Sandro Mamukelashvili brought onto the floor to make open 3-pointers. Believe there was a possession where he missed one. He's clearly disappointed. Victor Wembanyama got the ball at the top of the arc, either off a rebound, off a pass, immediately passed it back to Sandro Mamukelashvili, and without hesitation, Mamu tried again, swished it. That's progress. Like it was funny. I think Jeff and I were talking to him in LA, and there was a shot that he passed up because he had missed one earlier and he didn't feel like he was a star enough player. Like, why should I be putting up multiple misses? Well, you're out there to shoot, like shoot or shoot. And they want him to do that. And I think he can really be, I still enjoy watching him play. I think he can be a weapon for them if he's making that shot.
For a guy that's like so happy-go-lucky and like a puppy dog to talk to, he's really hard on himself.
He is.
Like I talked to him last night because remember before the game we asked Mitch about DeMar and his pump fakes.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, Mitch says, but somebody's going to fall for it. And the guy that fell for it was Mamu. And so I asked him about that after the game, and he was just like, I was so mad at myself. But like it looked like he was going up. And I was just so mad because what he said was kind of what he told us that night. Like I don't play a lot. I don't get a lot of chances. So I can't go out there and screw up.
Yeah.
Because I might not get another one. And that's kind of how he looks at it. And I will say later in the game, he had a similar matchup with DeMar, and he stayed on his feet. So he's learning.
I think he's a good example for us all. I think we're all afraid of screwing up. We might have screwed up this podcast. Like this, people out there might have tuned out by now. Just that these idiots, what are they talking about? We'll do better next time. We'll stick with it. I think everybody should. I'm making no predictions about anything else this week. That did not go so well last week. But until next time, take care of each other and keep it real.